It may come as a surprise, or it may not, that Dazai kisses him first. They lean against the same grimy wall in a secluded alleyway near Chuyu's apartment. Covered in blood, naturally. Not quite arguing, unnaturally, and definitely not enough for a fight. A cigarette slips between Chuyu's lips, and he can feel Dazai staring at it with something akin to disdain, maybe disgust, or maybe jealousy. When Chuyu proposed they linger outside so he can smoke, Dazai's response was a scoff. Dazai's response was saying that it was pathetic to be a slave to anything but yourself, which felt, and still feels, hypocritical. Though Chuyu quickly realized he cannot concretely pinpoint why, so he settled for kicking Dazai in the shin and telling him to go the fuck home. Dazai, of course, didn't. Chuyu decided to chain smoke 2 cigarettes to fuck with him. When Chuyu stubs his first cigarette, only to reach for the pack again, Dazai lets out an annoyed groan. Chuyu pays him no mind and plops a new cigarette into his mouth, lights it. Right as he takes it out to exhale his first drag, a shadow drapes over his vision. Dazai steps in front of him and plucks the cigarette from between his fingers. Chuyu first thinks he's going to throw it away, and he prepares his launching stance to tackle him to the ground. But Dazai simply brings it to his own lips. Hypocrite, Chuyu scoffs. Dazai exhales smoke into the tiny space between them, doesn't hand Chuyu back his cigarette. The last time I smoked was 2 weeks ago, he retorts. You, on the other hand, smoked yesterday, and 1 minute ago. Okay, you gonna give me back my fucking cig? Silence settles over them. It is a very peculiar kind of silence. It would perhaps hinder on intimate if they were anybody else. Which doesn't make any sense. Chuyu reasons this silence is supposed to feel frustrating. Chuyu frowns. Dazai looks into his eyes. He places his empty hand on Chuyu's jaw. Chuyu almost snorts at how natural that feels. His body feels at ease, refuses to pull away even when his brain greatly considers it, when his brain concludes that he should. Dazai's palm is predictably cold against his skin. That should be anticlimactic. It isn't. Chuyu's cigarette still dangles elegantly between Dazai's long fingers. Chuyu stares at them, at the uneven portion of nail that spills over the fingertips, somehow not fully broken. There is blood gathered underneath. Dazai's breath, contrasting everything else about him, is hot. Chuyu can feel the short little huffs on his face, on his mouth, in his mouth. Dazai manages to find an impossible middle ground, doesn't get closer gradually or urgently, leaning in fast enough that Chuyu is taken slightly off guard, slow enough that it isn't quite hungry. Chuyu melts into it, and Dazai's thumb raises over his cheek for no reason at all. Dazai's lips are chapped and dry, metallic, at a dried-up split corner, slotted between Chuyu's at an angle so their noses don't bump into each other. Barely parted, mostly unmoving. The whole ordeal still somehow manages to get Chuyu's head spinning. Chuyu's hands jump to grasp his sides. They curl right around Dazai's hip bones, thumbs digging into the dip where the bones hones toward his pelvis. It's a weird kiss, through and through, but they are weird people, through and through. Dazai pulls away for a single second, a single centimeter, and merely tilts his head further to the side before leaning in again. His fingertips advance behind Chuyu's head, sliding around his ear. Chuyu's thumbs press down until he feels something rigid beneath. He pries Dazai's lips open and traces the uneven edges of his teeth. Chuyu only knows the cigarette has dropped out of Dazai's hold when Dazai shifts to crush it underfoot. He murmurs a quiet asshole into Dazai's mouth, and his hands press down harder, as if trying to lodge his fingers into the skin and caress the pelvic bone directly, maybe split it. Dazai's breath hitches, and he breaks the kiss again. His fingers are now nicely splayed over Chuyu's nape, slightly warmer than before. Or maybe Chuyu has just gotten used to the feeling. His breath is still hot, his face one big, glorified shadow in shitty alley lighting. It's quite stupid, then, that Chuyu doesn't want to stop kissing him. You still want to smoke? Dazai asks, low and breathless. Despite being aware that the tone is performative, hearing his voice break like that does something inconceivable to Chuyu's body. A shudder courses through him, warmth pools in his gut. Gonna make you pay for that cigarette, you know. It turns out that fucking Dazai is scarcely different from fighting him, which Chuyu cannot say he didn't expect. It's just perhaps unfortunate that Dazai now stands at the root of Chuyu's primary resources for unwinding, that neither will feel the same in his absence. That Chuyu will try to punch an inanimate object or flirt with someone at a bar, and he will go stupid fucking flashbacks of Dazai's stupid fucking flushed face and his stupid fucking stuttered breaths and the stupid fucking way his legs tremble. The stupid little noises he makes and the way he chews Chuyu's name between his teeth and the bruises on his skin that Chuyu still has yet to physically see because they couldn't actually wait long enough to take their clothes off. Yes, Chuyu couldn't wait long enough to take his clothes off. It feels frustrating and pathetic. Chuyu, with his well-leashed self-control and that thing he has where he doesn't really enjoy anything done for his sake and his overwhelming desire to see Dazai's skin. His body has never really been his to control, but this is getting a bit absurd. Just when it seemed like it couldn't get any worse, it does. Chia could, at least, still get some shut-eye every time he told himself the violence and the sex were connected. They fight, then they fuck. Exclusively, not quite aggressively, but definitely not tenderly either. Something languid, sputtery, tired, stupidly intimate because of it, because of the lack of words, abundance of breath. Simultaneously not intimate at all because their clothes are still on and they're on the goddamn floor, and Chia cannot quite bear to look into Dazai's eyes, so he drapes himself over his back instead. Chia isn't sure what he's supposed to do when Dazai starts doing shit like tugging on his sleeves while he's cooking, or wrapping his arms around his shoulders, or rubbing at Chia's calves with his feet beneath the dinner table, which wouldn't be unusual if they weren't alone, or, kissing him during a video game reprieve. Is this some sort of cheating tactic? Chia breathes into his lips. I'm already winning. Maybe I was gonna win this match and you were trying to distract me. Fuck if I know. Dazai's arms encircle his neck, and Chia cannot help the way his hands attach to Dazai's sides, just below his ribcage, where the last bone ends and his intestines must begin. Chia pushes right into that transitionary spot, as if trying to trace the bottom edge of Dazai's rib, and Dazai hums. Seriously, what are you doing? What are we doing would perhaps be the better question, but Chia still feels like he has enough deniability available. Dazai's head tilts to the side. His jawline is highlighted by the blue light effect of the TV, small reflection in his eye making it look like there might be some tangible form of life in there. I was under the impression that we were already over this threshold. Chia becomes acutely aware of the dip of the couch beneath him for some reason, his soft feet tucked under his weight. Yeah, but, not like this. Dazai's breath shakes and he begins to pull away. Chia instantly regrets all of his life choices. His thumb digs harshly into Dazai's ribs, and he cannot stop thinking about the feeling that marrow directly. Dazai scoffs, breath hitching. You're really sending me mixed signals here. Sorry, Chia exhales, shaky. He clears his throat. One of his hands hikes up to tug at Dazai's collar, pull him closer. Can I take your shirt off? Dazai blinks twice before he repositions himself over Chia, steadies himself. Are you gonna fuck me? Chia's world spins, and he feels increasingly dizzy. He is not working properly. Yeah, he answers way too casually. Yeah, do you want me to? Dazai kisses him again. He starts shrugging off his tie while Chia pins him to the couch. Just when it seemed like it couldn't get any worse, it does. Chia could, at least, still get some shut-eye every time he told himself that violence and the sex were connected. They fight, then they fuck. Exclusively. Not quite aggressively, but definitely not tenderly either. Something languid, sputtery, tired, stupidly intimate because of it, because of the lack of words, abundance of breath. Simultaneously not intimate at all because their clothes are still on and they're on the goddamn floor, and Chia cannot quite bear to look into Dazai's eyes, so he drapes himself over his back instead. Chia isn't sure what he's supposed to do when Dazai starts doing shit like tugging on the sleeves while he's cooking, or wrapping arms around his shoulders, or rubbing at Chia's calves with his feet beneath the dinner table, which wouldn't be unusual if they weren't alone. Or, kissing him during a video game reprieve. It's a sort of cheating tactic, Chia breathes into his lips. I'm already winning. Maybe I was gonna win this match and you're trying to distract me. Fuck if I know. Dazai's arms encircle his neck, and Chia cannot help the way his hands attach to Dazai's sides, just below his ribcage, where the last bone ends and his intestines must begin. Chia punches right into that transitionary spot, as if trying to trace the bottom edge of Dazai's rib, and Dazai hums. Seriously, what are you doing? What are we doing would perhaps be a better question, but Chia feels like he still has enough deniability available. Dazai's head tilts to the side. His jawline is highlighted by the blue light of the TV, small reflection in his eye making it look like there might be some tangible form of life there. I was under the impression that we were already over this threshold. Chia becomes acutely aware of the dip of the couch beneath him for some reason, his soft feet tucked under his weight. Yeah, but, not like this. Dazai's breath shakes, and he begins to pull away. Chia instantly regrets all of his life choices. His thumbs dig harshly into Dazai's ribs, and he cannot stop thinking about feeling the marrow directly. Dazai scoffs, breath hitching. You are really sending me mixed signals here. Sorry, Chia exhales, shaky. He clears his throat. One of his hands hike up to tug at Dazai's collar, pull him closer. Can I take your shirt off? Dazai blinks twice before he repositions himself over Chia, steadies himself. Are you going to fuck me? Chia's world spins. He feels increasingly dizzy. He is not working properly. Yeah, he answers, way too casually. Yeah, do you want me to? Dazai kisses him again. He starts shrugging off his tie while Chia pins him to the couch. They fight and they fuck, and they fight when they fuck, and they fuck when they fight. They fuck without fighting, they fight without fucking. They exist in a limbo of visible and not bruises that they keep poking at. Chia digs his fingers into every single patch of Dazai's skin he has marred, and then mars some more around Dazai's hips or wrists or thighs. Oftentimes it feels like the things Dazai says or does to him have the same goal as pushing a sharp nail into the tender skin of a scar, splitting up skin edges. It makes him think about splitting Dazai's entire body up, blood and guts on display, ribs pulled apart. It makes him think that he's the biggest fool to have ever lived because he allows Dazai to get that close. He trusts Dazai to see his interior and still decide not to strike his heart. It's debatable whether the fact that Dazai actually doesn't matters when he strikes Chia's lungs instead, and that is still guaranteed death. Dazai has learned to linger. You'd imagine he would disappear suddenly, like a ghost, once he's gotten all he wants. He used to. Chia doesn't know why exactly he stays so much, why he started staying. Dazai sometimes looks at him with such raw admiration or satisfaction or something that Chuya thinks it might make him burst. He thinks the entire world will burst. He thinks he might be dreaming for the first ever time. He looks into Dazai's eyes. Yes, eyes, plural, because he has somehow earned the privilege to strip Dazai of all his barriers, and what he assumes is the physical form of that same admiration or satisfaction or whatever festers in his own gut. The moment shouldn't be this intimate. They're on the floor again. Dazai is resting his head on Chia's chest with sweat crawling over his entire body and his pants still dangling by his knees. Chia tangles a hand up in Dazai's hair, and Dazai allows it like he's expecting it. He pulls Dazai's head up to see him better, and Dazai props himself on his elbows, caging Chia between them. Chia thinks about kissing him. He would be allowed to. He tugs harshly on Dazai's hair until a breathless little breath crawls out and his mouth opens. Chia pulls harder. He doesn't kiss Dazai. It doesn't matter that he doesn't, because this feels the same. Breathing into each other's mouths, tasting life and movement and vitality. Dazai is alive. Dazai is alive. Dazai is alive. There comes a time when Chia cannot be sure Dazai is alive. His thoughts are a jumble, so are his feelings. His entire being might be, but his body has survived too much to break from this. He instead breaks bottles of whiskey and downs an entire one of wine and doesn't feel better. He hates himself for reacting, for letting this affect him when the one thing Dazai has ever been consistent in is his inconsistency. Dazai is not a creature of stillness, and Chuya hates how human that makes him. Dazai is shifting and moving and not quite the same person with every single interaction, and that is fucking exciting, and it has always made Chuya want to deck him in the face. He is never the same person this wanting has started with, but it has adapted for him. It has grown. Has Chuya grown? Has Dazai grown? Have they grown together? Or is this decay? Chia assumes Dazai is dead because that is the easiest choice. Chia assumes Dazai is dead because that makes it feel less like betrayal. Dazai has always wanted to die, and it would be absurd to assume he would forsake that for anything or anyone in the world. He is selfish at heart, one of the things Chia has always both hated and envied about him. Chia assumes Dazai is dead because people constantly say shit like, there is nothing you could have done, not really addressed to Chia, not really verbally, and that digs up the all-too-familiar feeling of talking about the deceased, because paradoxically, and against what everyone else seems to feel, it is easier to let the past be when he assumes that there will be no future. Chia assumes Dazai is dead because he chooses to, because he wants to, because he does not need to complicate his life, because death is the kindest way for something to be taken from you. Chia does not actually fucking assume Dazai is dead. Chia fights and Chia fucks, and the two are not connected anymore. Not because that reminds him of Dazai or some stupid shit, but because they simply don't need to be. The only genuine connection between the two is their abstract forms, physical acts that leave Chia feeling pleasantly spent. Chia has never wanted to hurt someone as much as he has wanted to hurt Dazai. He has never wanted to hurt someone in the same way he has wanted to hurt Dazai. It would be futile and unfulfilling to try to. He no longer sees appeal in split bodies and spilled guts and molding bruises. There's only appeal in the physical extortion, perhaps in the human interaction. Chia fights and Chia fucks, and it has been delightfully easy to detach Dazai from it all. It is truly strange how that man seems to provide solutions for aches he himself has caused.